Thank you very much for coming to the opening of the series Resistance Movements of Refugee Women in Berlin and Germany, Information, Exchange, Networking, and Empowerment. This is a workshop series organized by Frankreise, Migrationsrat Berlin Brandenburg, Greek TV, and Intercultural Women's Center SUSI. My name is Elisabeth, and I'm the coordinator of the center, and I'm taking forward the work initiated by my colleague Shamili Da Silva. She's right now on maternity leave, and I'm happy to present this event and to be here with you today. And today we present the workshop Women in Exile, the first event of the series. The activists Elisabeth Ngari and Damarice Okore are here to explain from a colonial perspective and in a historical context the political and social situation of refugee women in Germany and especially in Berlin Brandenburg. Thank you very much for coming. Hier ist Tatjana Jaram, Program Officer of the Women's Center Frankreise and co-initiator of the series, will introduce the workshop and will moderate the discussion, in which you are very welcome to participate. You can ask questions in German if you want to. And Vicky Geman from Greek TV and also co-initiator of the project will film the whole event. Also, if you don't want to be filmed, I will make also pictures if you don't want to be filmed or just to be on the photos, just please let me know. And yeah, I wish you a written event or evening. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yes, okay, for me as well, good evening. Thank you very much for coming. Yes, this is the first workshop of our series Resistance Movements of Refugee Women in Berlin and Germany. And I will be taking over the moderation today. And I'd like to give you a brief introduction to the background and the idea behind the whole series. The idea came to us last spring, summer already, when the protests and resistance in and around the Oranienplatz and the Olauer Straße were very present. And then we then realized we would like to do something especially with a specific focus of resistant movements of refugee women. So we sat together, we as Frankreise, Susi, Vicky from Greek TV, and in the conception phase also Women in Exile, and thought about how we could address the issue. What was important to us in dealing with the topic was that we lay one clear emphasis on the resistance of women refugees, and not only on their situation as such. Although we do always want to name colonial continuities and the various forms of racism and discrimination, above all, we wanted to show that there is strong self-organized resistance against these structures, and that it has been there for many, many years now, and in most cases with extremely meager financial resources. What was also essential to us was a clear focus on the perspectives of refugee women and their self-organizations when dealing with this topic, and to also integrate these perspectives into the preparation processes of the series, and not only the outcome. What we wanted to try in any case was to avoid a paternalistic situation which often arises when talking about or working on the topic of migration and asylum and the resistance of refugees in Europe and Germany. Keywords that accompanied us throughout the whole preparation phase were information exchange, networking and empowerment, as is the subtitle of the series. And these are points that we hope to achieve here and within the whole series. The individual workshop or event should therefore not be reduced to a mere input on the part of the speakers, but also encompass exchange and networking amongst all participants, first and foremost amongst women, or should I say those who define themselves as such, and who see themselves somehow affected by the discriminatory migration and asylum laws in Europe and Germany. We also hope that an atmosphere and situation will be created in which the individual events that will bear empowering potential. To show how complex and many-layered the resistance of refugee women is, we chose to conduct 3 workshops or events in which different self-organizations or initiatives of refugee women would present their work and their perspectives. You will see in the flyers and on seats. It was also important for us to carry out a particular workshop on the subject of LGBTI, as taking it to different forms of discrimination and how they are intertwined into consideration is fundamental to our understanding of feminism and feminist theory, and is also how we approach and the approach we choose in our everyday work as feminist women's projects. Besides this, we had the impression that the perspectives of LGBTI in regard to refugee and migrant laws and the resistance of refugees has only recently started to be thematized publicly in Europe and Germany, and still does not enjoy the attention it should, especially in feminist discourse, where this topic should actually definitely be situated. Okay. The second last event of our series will primarily deal with the role of supporters within the resistance movements of refugee women and refugees in general. We wanted to integrate this topic into the series as the thin line between solidarity and paternalism and the reproduction of racism and other forms of discrimination within the movement was a very significant topic for all of us involved in the operations. To conclude the series, there will be an event at which we hope to create space for evaluation, general exchange and networking, which will take place in July. Now, I will not talk much longer, since actually this evening belongs to Women in Exile. Today with Elisabeth Ngari and Damarice Okore, as Thais already said. I will only briefly say something about Women in Exile, as the speakers will definitely also say something and probably do it a lot better than me. Women in Exile have been around for 20 years now. Their work focuses mainly on Berlin and Brandenburg. They are based in Potsdam and have different campaigns, amongst others one for the abolishment of so-called refugee lagers, but they also give seminars and empowerment workshops and general workshops for refugee women, and try to promote and strengthen networking in Berlin and Brandenburg. They have won various awards for their work, and I'm very pleased that we can welcome them here today. And yes, the stage is open for you. A warm welcome and a warm hand.
Thank you. I'm Elisabeth, and I'll do the first part of the presentation about our work, and Damarice will do the last part, and that's the part about the tour we did last summer. So I'll just start. Women in Exile is it's an organization of refugee women. We started this in 2002 because we felt that women are having more problems, or in the lagers they have more problems than men, and we thought it's good to organize ourselves. And it started with us. The next one, sorry, please. Our roots are from the Brandenburg Initiative, which was a mixed group of refugees from Berlin and Brandenburg. And we made a demonstration in 2002 in Berlin against Residenzpflicht, which was a nationwide demonstration. And within this time is the time we realized that apart from, because we were going from Heim to Heim, trying to find out the problems which were being faced by the refugees in those particular Heims, And in our time, it was very difficult because most of the laws were most of the laws were there. We had no freedom to move from our homes or from the districts where we were living. We had very few or nobody had like work permit. German classes were very rare. So these were the things we were fighting for. But in the process of this demonstration, we found out that many women, we talked with them and found out that they have other needs, not only these laws we were, racist discriminative laws we call them because they are just for refugees. And we found out that women, particularly in the lagers, were having more other problems, not just what we were fighting for, not just residence, the laws, but also other things which women were going through. And we started, now as women started organizing ourselves, and we started moving from home to home as well. That's one of the pictures. You can see how this was a room for someone with a small child, and the child was sleeping up and she was sleeping down, and the space was so small. So we started looking into such matters, and we could move from one home to another, talking to the women, and yeah, that's the way we started organizing ourselves from different times. And then we started, we thought, okay, it's also good to empower women so that the other women as well, so that we can work together and have, you know, like the women together, come together and try to fight also from a feminist, from a woman's perspective. And so we started meeting, making workshops and eating together and talking about the problems we were facing. So these are part of the things we are doing, and we are also making networking, like we did with Susie in this particular thing. And we go to places and we talk about our work, and we try to network with other women or groups fighting for refugee issues. And then that is one of our workshops. And we usually try to meet over the weekend and from like 2-3 days, because it's always difficult for the women to come, especially from all over Brandenburg, to just one day, one afternoon, because they have to go back and they are living in isolated places. So it's always difficult for the transportation or whatever. So when we organize such seminars, we try to make them like the whole weekend so that people have enough time to talk and to find out how we can try to fight these laws, or you know, to let the women also empower themselves and try to do things in their way. And we believe that this together, living together, this close, you know, being together in this small, or people who have been put together in a small space, and they from different cultures, from different religions and all that. And this life, because most of them have no perspectives, and we just don't know what to do next, because everything is like we are not allowed to do anything. So this situation makes us, you know, make us feel worthless, and people have stress and trauma. Mostly women, being the people who actually think about what the families are, what the needs of the other family members. It's very difficult for them because they don't have also the the possibilities of, you know, like doing what they would like to do. And yeah, so we try to bring these issues to the societies by being active and by joining other activists and to see and groups who are working on refugee issues to see how we can work together to bring these issues out and how to maybe to shape these laws. And after visiting these homes from one place to another for about 1.5 years, we came up with a brochure which we documented all these problems the women were facing up, not just the laws, but also the things which were affecting them daily, like lack of privacy, sharing of facilities like toilets, bathroom, and kitchens, and also suffering from sexual and physical harassment from the people whom they were living together. And in this brochure, we made a memorandum out of it, and the memorandum was directed to the Minister of Social, Family, and Youth in Brandenburg, so that we decided to present it to him and with our demands of how we feel the life in the heights are. And and we from these demands we met him. We looked for we asked for a meeting with him, and it was on the 8th of March, because we usually make programs 8th of March. We try to make programs when there are specific days for, you know, like Racism Days or Women International Women Week or something like that. So we came up, we took the brochure to him together with the memorandum, and you know, talked, and he promised a lot of things like what politicians do, which he never did. And in the next, the same day, we made a big demonstration in Potsdam, which was supported by a lot of people from Berlin, Brandenburg, and the same day we gave the memorandum, and that was like the kickoff of a campaign, No Lager for Women, Abolish All Lagers, because these were one of the demands we made to the ministry. And what is interesting is that the ministry sent a circular letter after that to the people running not running the heights, but the people responsible of that's it. The people who are running the heights now, the people who are working in the heights, like the social workers and the other people, and asked them to be knocking at our doors, because this was one of our complaints. They were used to coming inside, and you know, they have the key to everywhere. They will open, because sometimes they think you are not inside, and sometimes they can even find you naked. It's one room, and they'll just come and they don't knock, and this was one of our complaints. And it's so, we find it so that, you know, it needs from the higher authority to, you know, for a simple thing like you should knock at the door. We find that, you know, like scandal. Although we find also that the ministry should do more than that, not just writing a circular letter saying that the hiring personnel should knock at our doors. And in the same year, then the ministry imposed, I'm talking about Brandenburg, because that's where mostly we are working in. Most of all of us in Women in Exile, the people with refugee background and refugees are from Brandenburg. We have a few from Berlin, but as you know, in Berlin there's a lot of support for refugees. So in Brandenburg, mostly where we are working. And so in 2011, the Parliament resolved that there should be the ministry form out working groups for this, about looking to the lager system. And in January 2012, a report came out, and they said they saw the needs that, you know, refugees should be, they should be housed in flats, or yeah. But nothing much happened, so we decided to write a letter reminding the minister of his of our demands and of his promise that he would look into these things. And but he didn't even answer our open letter, so we decided again to go in 2012. We had our 10th anniversary as Women in Exile, and we decided to go to the ministry again and make a demonstration, and then go and, you know, do our events of celebrating our 10 years. And then since we didn't get anything from the ministry, and they were always like, we are looking into this matter, but nobody was coming out with a clear answer. So in 2013, we decided to make another demonstration in Potsdam, and still with our demands of no lagers, because we believe that these lagers are, first of all, the way they are isolated and all that is one of the big problems the refugees are facing here in Germany. So we made another demonstration, and then we realized when we visited the heights, there were so many complaints we started getting reports of people who are really either sexually harassed or physically violated, and we decided now also to make another campaign to the same ministry, but this time we decided to go to the ministry, and we did an online petition, and we decided to give it on the 20th June of 2013, and we took this to the ministry. I'm sorry, because the balance was same. I'm sorry, excuse me. This was in Potsdam. In June 2013, they had decided already to start building containers. And we and other refugee groups and supporters, we decided to demonstrate to the Potsdam city, and they stopped. That time they stopped building containers, but a year later now they have started building the containers, because they say the refugee situation is getting worse. And they're also opening new lagers in isolated areas, not just isolated, but they are also lagers they had closed, they have started opening them again. So we don't actually know how to go on anymore. And in our campaign also, we have our newsletter, and we have like 6 editions now, and I brought one. It's there. If someone needs a copy, they can take. But the other editions are somebody can download them from the web blog. And in these newsletters, we are talking about the situation of women in the heights, or in general refugee problems, and then we have we also give like tips on laws on, you know, like what, like if you have violated, what can you do, where should you go, where should you go, or things like that. And yeah, this is what I was noticing. We did this, I talked about it after the online petition. I decided to give it to the Ministry of Family and Women and Youth. And we went there. This is the time there was no government, so it was very difficult. We gave the signatures and they promised they would get in touch with us. They never did. We wrote to them, they never wrote back. So we keep on trying regardless. And then I think Damarice will talk about this part of the project.
Good evening, my name is Damarice, and from Berlin and Exile. Last year, 2014, one musician, German musician known as Mr. Heinz Ratz, from the band Wasser, he wanted to do a project with the refugee women to bring out the problems that the refugees are facing in the lager. A year before, he had done the same kind of thing, but with the men refugees. So when we heard about that, we approached him and he accepted to have us to work together with him. So that is when we joined him in the raft tour. So in summer last year, 2014, as most of us were on holiday in summer, we had a raft holiday because we were on the road for 7 weeks. Okay, our tour started from Nürnberg on the 15th July 2014, and the tour lasted for 7 weeks till we got to Berlin. And yeah, after 7 weeks, maybe I should say something before the 7 weeks, yeah. Along as we were moving, we were using rafts. There were 2 rafts that were built. I don't know what is the German name for the rafts.
Flows.
Yeah, flows, okay. So this is one of the rafts that we had, and we had 2. And the rafts were always on the water every day, and our group could not fit in these 2 rafts, so we also had a hired 8-seater bus, which we used all the way from Nürnberg to Berlin. So every day we could move from one city to another, and once we landed in the next city, those of us who were moving by bus were always going to a lager in that city. So in these 7 weeks, we went to a different lager every day for the 7 weeks because we wanted to talk to women. And along this tour also we realized that women have a lot of problems even in the other region, and I always say this, mostly from Munich. That is when I saw the worst lagers, I think in Deutschland. And I was surprised at first, like I thought Bayern had everything. But then I saw the reality. So then there were a lot of issues there. We find like women have problems, but they really don't know how to go about it. And this is part of our work to try and empower the women. Because today we are in this land, and tomorrow we are not there. So we want these women to be able to stand on their own and be able to really stand for justice. And they know what they want, but they don't know how to go about it. And in most cases, most refugees do not know what to do. They are there, but they are stuck. So we were trying to empower them, talk to them, and also give us our history and how we have fought through this system, and the fight still has to continue. So this is in 7 weeks when we landed in Berlin. So, and I think when we got to Berlin, there was something really peculiar about this, because there was a point where our rafts were not allowed to be there, even along the tour. Most of the times you are saying it does not make it spoils the beauty of the place. They just want to see the big ships and the big boats, but not this kind of thing. And for us, this was really important, because when you are on this raft, then you can really picture what the life of a refugee woman is like. It's either you sink or you float. And once you sink, then you have to really find a way to help yourself, and sometimes there's no way. So this really depicts the life of a refugee woman. Mostly in German, we say refugees are welcome, but I always say refugees are not welcome. It's just a saying. But I think we need to put deeper meaning into this saying than just saying, you're welcome. But you're saying you're welcome with a sad face. I always tell Germans, sorry to say this, but I always say it's better to close the borders and not say refugees are welcome. Then we know Germany is a no-go zone. But the truth must be told, it's not easy for the refugees, and the fight continues. We shall never stop. Yeah. So, arriving in Berlin on the 27th August 2014, from the 15th of July, there were so many groups in Berlin to welcome us, and there is in Berlin also these rafts. There was a lot of police as usual. We are used to the police anyway. They always have to be there. But one thing they forget is that they are creating more publicity for us when they come. So we love them, they are protecting us, and so at some point in time also here in Berlin, the rafts were not allowed, but we had one group that offered to give us their ship, to work with us, to bring their ship and to allow us to be with them on that ship, and they were also supporting us. I've forgotten the name of the group, but theirs was allowed because it's big enough and it's not really spoiling the environment like this one. So we accomplished our mission, but we have not stopped there. We are still keeping in touch, and we are still trying to do what we can as refugees and former refugees. So this is one of our messages. I think it's the main message that we have. Keine Lager für Frauen, alle Lager schaffen. So Lager should be closed. Women should be housed in flats, because the Lager is not such a good place. I was in the Lager for 3 years. It's not such a good place to be in. And as we were having the tour, every evening we had a concert along the tour and with a musician, because I think I forgot to mention that, because the musician had a performance in every city we were going in the evening, and with us refugees too performing there. And all refugees from the lager in the city where we were allowed to come in free without paying for charges. So we always wanted to do something with them together, and still in the day we had some acrobats and face painting and other stuff for the children. Because actually at that point in time when you visit the lager, that is when you know that nobody visits the lager except you who has visited there. So these are human beings, they also need support. The children are just like our children, because when you are living in a society where you are so isolated, sometimes you grow up really just feeling about only rejection, and I think this is not the kind of society we want to have. Yeah. So that is all about our tour, and maybe you have questions.
two, I would like to ask. And then I will give the open space for you. What would interest me is what your assessment or evaluation of the last 3 years and now is, because in the last 3 years there was strong refugee protests, especially in Berlin, a strong public refugee process, although there's been protests for 20 years already. And also now there's been actually a tightening of asylum laws in Germany, and how you would, your assessment on this situation. Especially from the perspective of refugee women. What does that mean for refugee women? What does that mean for refugee children, and also refugee children who are maybe traveling by themselves, which we also have?
I think, if I may, we have seen, it's very good that we have very strong movements. We saw the refugees who moved from Oslo to Berlin. We have seen the Lampedusa in Hamburg and all that. But things are not improving, they are getting worse. We see the borders are being closed. Or like women who are in the home, I would say, most of them are under the threat of dumping food, because they are coming through other countries, and most of them are traumatized. The ones we are meeting, either some of them have sick children, they are to be sent back to Poland, and we know what's happening in Poland. There's nothing for them, no facilities, or they get very little, and we have had complaints of what is happening. And so it's like the children are here also, and some of them are even going to school, but they're still at the threat of deportation. And anytime they can be deported. So you can imagine how such children like Jesus will grow up. Yeah, they don't have a steady life. It's from one country to the next, and one language to the next. I mean, it's also traumatizing them, and at the end, I don't know, unless one is very strong, what type of adults they will make after this. So the situation is still bad, and like we saw throughout this tour, one small room, you find like a family, 3 generations, grandparents, parents and kids in one small room. And, lack of privacy. How do you live in this small room with all the family members in it? And women we talk to on the way, and women we also are having, are all complaining of this or that, either it's trauma or sickness, or we want to do something, we are not allowed to do it. We want to look for jobs. Where do we start? We don't have language classes. We want to do language classes. We have small children. We don't have baby care. That's not catered for. So there are these problems generally for refugees. And so good that there are many movements, fighting for the refugee rights. But also maybe it would be good to have, as a dream, I would like one big movement which we know will fight together, but also there are also different needs with refugees, so I don't know, but yeah.
I remember when we were right at the beginning of the conceptual phase, we also talked about this divide and rule, and how this is also a colonial concept, but how now is also, you somehow see it when it comes to the refugee movement. Maybe you can elaborate a bit on that, because that was also a perspective that you brought in.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a secret. We can look now at all plans. You see, everybody is going their way, although when they started, they were fighting for the same things. But in the process, it's like every group is going their way. I find that also as from the supporters is a problem, because most of them want to bring their perspective or their political understanding into the movement, into the refugee movement, and then it comes like in between the refugee turn, and it's like, okay, it's bad to do if we make the hunger strike, it's not a very good whatever to the public. So it's better if we just go to the streets, you know. These are the sort of policies which come in and somehow you find these movements going down. And I think that is also the aim of the government, yeah, so that they don't get stronger. So there are always things coming inside, and yeah, that's part of divide and rule as far as I'm concerned. It's also very difficult also to work with some supporters because they bring their whatever political interest inside, and they forget that they are working with refugees, and they are like, they become like they are working about refugees. So I think this should be made clear that, okay, we are fighting together, yes, but if you are working about us, then I think that's a different work. That's different work. But if we are fighting together in solidarity, then we should have the same aims. Yeah.
I have some more questions, but
I wanted to ask you, in your opinion, what would be a realistic, suitable alternative to these women homes? If we close them, what could we offer? What could they offer? Let's be realistic. What is
the best accommodation here?
Yes.
Is to have a private accommodation in the flats, because every time we raise this question, you are being told there are no houses in Germany. And I come from Cottbus, I see a lot of buildings being demolished, so what are these people talking about? For me, it's not making sense. When it comes to refugees, we don't have the capacity. For any other thing, there is the capacity. So actually, there are double standards here. Yeah, because there's no way you can raise a child in an environment that is not so friendly. People are traumatized, people have a lot of problems, people are from different cultures, and you really want this child to be the best. I think we need to really take care of these children from the start. That's why we are talking as women, because the children are suffering more than the women themselves. Sometimes they cannot just raise their voice, but we can see this is affecting their lives every day. So I think the private accommodation is the only option here.
Yeah, because it's also been proven that these larger systems are actually, for the government, for the state, more expensive than if they would just say, okay, we will give you flats. And especially in East Germany, there's so much room. So I think it's just not a strategy. Also, that some of the lagers are in the middle of the forest, for example.
All of them.
Or
Yes. I think it's just a strategy of isolating a group of people, discriminating them, and we talk to women whose children are in the lager 3 years, and a woman just lets her child outside the door for a few minutes, and then they fight them with a cigarette stub, because he's copying the adults who are there, and some of them are even giving them, try. It's a place, an enclosed place where people are idle and, like we said, traumatized, and they don't see anything, damaging when they are like, it's a boy, it's a child, you can also have a cigarette, So we want to be given also that we can make a choice. Where do we want to live? Like everybody else, not just being put into forests and being isolated. So the best opportunity is to get flats, and like she says, they are cheaper than these homes. There are a lot of buildings in Germany, the whole of Germany, which are empty, and people, we don't have so that so many refugees. We don't, it's only a myth from the, I would say, from the media and from the government to show that, you know, refugees are a problem. So,
Do the children attend school?
Not always.
Okay.
Sometimes you're put on the waiting list, like for so long you are told, wait. What are you doing with your children in the house? You don't have the language yourself, and you cannot go to school because your children are not going to school, and there is no school for you to go in the first place. I am talking of this because I lived in Cottbus for 3 years. I was getting 199 euro, and the German classes are going for 230 euro. So how do I pay my ticket? How do I eat? So I find that most of the things are not practical. They just, when it comes to refugees, German system just wants to make everything more complicated. Like they say, they want you to get tired and carry your bags, but we didn't come here on holiday. We are here because there was a situation that brought us here. And another good example is the good chain. The good chain is more expensive than giving baggage. So, it's discrimination. So these are all aspects to frustrate the refugee. And then at the end of it all, we say the refugees are drinking too much. What do you expect when you isolate the person into the roots? This person, for example, you put me in a room with people I don't know. Somebody's from another country, we don't even speak the same language. We don't speak German. So how do we even communicate in the first place? So when I have a choice, even if I'm living in a flat, I can share with somebody I know, or somebody from my country, we can speak the same language. Because I think even lack of communication. I think in Nuremberg, I came across a room where one woman was speaking French, one was speaking English, the other one was, I don't know from which language. There were 3, but they cannot talk to each other. So even animals communicate. So what is so different with human beings? Just because human beings have landed in Germany, you just want to dump them somewhere. At least let there be a plan. And the plan is there. It just needs to be implemented. But when it comes to refugees, it's a gap.
this is also bringing a lot of conflicts between the people who are living together because they don't understand one another. They have been forced to live together. It's not a choice.
You mentioned children before, and there's been some hearsay about children who are in between status. So when they arrive in Germany before their papers get processed, can you talk a little bit about what rights those children have in terms of like access to education? And also, how long does the process take before you are either recognized as being in the asylum process and having your process, I guess, actually be worked on, whether or not it's going to get approved, but just the actual part of being recognized as someone seeking asylum?
I think every child has a right to education. I think we all know that. But when it comes to a refugee child, I find the situation different. Because, first of all, you land here, you don't know about the system. But every child should go to school. That is the right of the child. But then, you are not able to go through the procedures because you don't even know the language. So, you are meant to stay in your room and wait with your child until anything is okay. You can wait for as long as they want. That one, there is no specific period because a case can take up to 1 year to be decided. So, where is that child living at that time? Maybe it's just a social worker, if you are lucky, comes to the home to spend 1 or 2 hours with the children. But the social worker is not helping because these children are from different backgrounds. The children do not even understand each other. So,
I also think the system here is very discriminating with the recognition of refugees. We from Africa are all put in one pot as because of having like problems in our countries, which is also okay. This goes also to colonialism, because if they didn't come and took everything from us and bring all this, support all these governments, then we won't be here. So I don't see why the refugees are also like discriminated, those coming from war countries and those who are coming because of financial gains. I mean, somebody moves because they feel where they are, it's not comfortable, or what is there, they cannot live with it anymore. Otherwise, people will not be moving. So I believe this discrimination of saying this refugee is from Africa or from Asia or from, yeah, I feel also when there is a war, it's very bad, like in Syria now. But the Western government should not be like being hypocritical, because they are the ones who bring these problems to people. Whether they are wars, they are supporting them. Where there are financial crises, like in Africa, they are coming and taking things, giving cheap labor and all that. So I think for the recognition, it's different. Some, especially Africans, they stay for 10 years and with no hope of being recognized as refugees. And not only Africans, but some people stay there for years. People have to look for their way either to stay or, you know, like, or there are people who even decide to go back because they find they cannot live, you know, in this life of being kept somewhere, being fed, and, you know. So the recognition comes differently, and with these young people, at the moment, you can say a few years back, they were getting opportunities of being able to do something, going back to school and all that. But now, like they say, the influence is so high, so it's, and those are projects from different organizations actually who are helping them. And so it's difficult now. There are a lot of young people who are in the homes at the moment who are not also doing anything.
I have a question. How do you organize politically when you have all of this uncertainty? Is it, do you have a particular way in which you deal with the fact that sometimes you lose contact with the people that you are working with? You said there's difficulties to communicate, people's interests are different, it's fragmented, they can't move around. How do you overcome these kind of problems and still manage to continue organizing politically your action?
Our work is based mainly in Brandenburg. I can say that, Berlin and Brandenburg. But as you heard before, I think you all know Berlin has a lot of support for refugees. So in Brandenburg is where we are trying with our capacity, first and foremost. Most of us are working on a voluntary basis. So because we don't have the capacity to pay ourselves. So sometimes we apply for funds to be able to get tickets, the travel costs. We have a program whereby we visit a lager in Brandenburg. Like every 1 week or every 2 weeks we go to a different lager. Because these women, we have to go and meet them there first of all and get to know what their problems are. Because some lagers, we have general problems and some lagers have different problems. So we visit the lagers and that is how we create the contact with the women. Because there's not so much that it's not easy for somebody to come from the lager all the way from Cottbus to Berlin. Because, for example, I can give my example. I was in Cottbus for 3 years, and Women in Exile visited Cottbus when I was in the Heim. I was just like 1 month old, and I just landed in Germany. I need to have an operation. I need to sign papers, which I don't even know what they mean. So at this point in time is when I met the women from Women in Exile for the first time, and I talked to them and told them I need to have an operation in Berlin, but I even don't know where Berlin is in the first place. So I got this is the first kind of help I got from Women in Exile, because I got somebody to take me to hospital, to translate, to help me, tell me what to sign, because sometimes, I think in Germany, I always say you can sign your death sentence, because you don't understand. You're just told, Unterschrift. You are given a pen, you know it means the pen should write, but what are you writing for? So that was my first contact. That is the first, how we make our contacts with the women. Then we have a meeting every first Saturday of the month in Berlin, where we invite these women to come and be with us. We talk together, have a cup of coffee together. We have a place we meet. It's also on our website. And we pay for their tickets when they come. Once we apply for the funds, we are able to pay for the tickets. So that is how we create our contact with them. Because we know it's important. We were in the land ourselves, and we know how hard it is when you don't have anybody. So for me, Women in Exile was my first family when I got here, and I've been there now for 5 years. So that's what we do. I hope I answered your question from my perspective. Thank you.
I have one more question. Your question.
How do you get financial support for your organization?
We make small projects, and like we say, empowerment workshops and seminars like that. And for the last year, our campaign was sponsored by Refugee. And then after the money got finished, we applied for a buses for the law, and they give it to us so that we can organize our office. So that's the main support we have at the moment. But for other things, projects, we are either having donations or small projects like the empowerment seminars and all that. But we actually, most of our work is financed through donations.
There's an old German word called, I believe, anschwärzen, which means to be made black. Can you talk about the experience that you had coming to Germany and what a black identity, or developing a black identity here, what the process was like for you, what you have witnessed or noticed that it's like in the varying degrees for refugee women and kids and men that you come across, what the process has been like for them psychologically as well as socially.
I think that one, especially the people, black people especially, I mean, if I start talking about this, it should take an hour, because first of all, there is the institutional racism, there is the street racism. We have been controlled in the trains. They come straight to you, especially when the residence speech was at its climax. They'll just come to you and say, you give out, like I paid a lot of straffers in this country because I didn't have permission to move every time, and I was doing my activities, and every time they will just come. Even the people, what are they called, the conductors, the ones checking the tickets, they will send the police to you, because they come in and they will say, yeah, they are coming, they are sitting on the other, in this couch, and they will come direct until they come to you. And since we didn't even have the language to express ourselves, we tried, like, call it racist, racial profiling, or all the words we knew, but it didn't matter. They still took our spices and put it down. So there is this on the streets every day, especially our time. It's coming back now with this Belinda thing. I mean, it's like history repeating itself. And this is something the community should look into. not just let the government bring this, because I feel these are usually things which are coming from the government because they want to please the community. But what does the community want? The community themselves should, you know, fight these things, because it's very difficult even for the children who are going to school. I remember my children when they were going to school, they didn't have even friends because it's like nobody wants to. And this is why I'm talking about this isolation of being in the lagers, because most children don't want to come to the lagers, so you can't be going to your friend all the time. You need your friend also to come to you. So it was very difficult even sometimes when they need to do homework together with other children because they don't want to come to the home. And it's because their parents are telling them what is going on in the home. I think children are innocent until they are fed up with a lot of racism or whatever. Nobody is born racist. They just created. Yeah.
So maybe about that point I can also give my two experiences. Strange enough that my two experiences of racism were in Cottbus Hospital. The first one, I went to Cottbus, I was in the lager, I had a really bad headache for like 3 hours. So in the lager you get a cracked chain, which you go with to the doctor. Because the people in the lager, first of all, don't have cracked position. That's one thing you should know. So once you're sick, you really have to go to the security. For example, if I'm in Cottbus and I'm from Cottbus and I fall sick in Berlin, I have to go to Cottbus and get a quarantine before I can go to the doctor. So I went to the hospital and I couldn't speak German. It was like less than 3 months. And I told the doctor could understand me very well. I told him I have headache, and the headache is really strong because now that I can speak German, now I've been tested and I know I have migraine. But at that time, I didn't have that opportunity. The doctor just took the Frankenstein, yes. He looked at my face and told me, you have swine flu. Just by looking at my face. No blood test, nothing. For me, that is discrimination. So, then he didn't even give me a paracetamol. At least if he gave me something, I would have said, yeah, he gave me some aspirin. He told me, go to the home and you come tomorrow. Remember, I've already given him the shine. So tomorrow I have to come with another one. And I, as the refugee, have like 3 or 4 Frankensteins per month. So who will give me the shine tomorrow? So I went to the lager, I sat down, I cried so much. But then I thought about it, crying will not help me. I need the language. So from Cottbus, through the project house, through Women in Exile, I got to know a school in a place in Potsdam, where they were offering free German classes. So I started coming for the German classes and they were paying for my tickets. So that is my first encounter to learn the German as a refugee. The second case, I had an operation in Berlin. The doctors did not give me antibiotics, so I was released. After the operation, I was told you're supposed to go to Cottbus immediately because Oshialam will not pay for it. First, I'm not fit to travel. And here I am traveling in a regional for 2 hours after an operation. No antibiotics. They are trying to save the costs, I believe. But once I got to Cottbus, I fell sick in the night. Now I had to go to hospital by Krankenwagen. I don't know if that was cheaper or more expensive for the German system. So I got to hospital and I had an infection. So I have to be put in hospital for 5 days for antibiotics, which they should have given me in a cheaper way from Berlin. So I slept in the hospital for the 5 days, and every morning the doctor would come to my room and the Krankenschwester would say, "Keine Deutsch, no English." That is the first statement I could remember every day in the morning. So I was never able to talk to the doctor for those 5 days. remember I've just had an operation. The last day as I was leaving the hospital, I was given my antibiotics. I was being told, yeah, you should not use the shower, the bathtub, you should use a shower. And for me, it hit me so hard. At that point in time, you really feel like you could strangle somebody. Because this same nurse who was saying kind dot is the same one now talking to me in English, telling me not to use the bathtub. I should use the shower for 2 weeks. So, I don't know. Those, I guess, were the few experiences that really made me to stand on my feet and also support others who don't have the capacity to support themselves. And also, among us, we also support the refugees in the home by going to translate for them like the doctors and to other people, so that they don't have the same problem like mine. Yeah, that's our support system. I cried, but I stood on my feet and said, crying is not enough. So I'm trying to help those who are still crying so that they can also stand on their own. Because in Germany, tears cannot help. It's the energy in you that will push you per day.
Maybe one continuing question. Yeah, we've heard now situation, and that actually is also all part of the colonial project, just with the continuity now, and that, as you said, Damarice, there's a plan, but actually this plan is not really to welcome refugees, to see how Germany can get rid of them as fast as possible. Yeah. And we also know that many refugee and asylum laws now are very similar to laws in colonial times in Namibia, for example, which also have the same kind of motivation. And my question would be, you've been around for nearly 20 years now, and I'm sure you've always developed new strategies and methods of fighting, and always to see that still laws are being tightened, for example. How do you develop strategies to keep on going, and also to motivate others when we see this demoralization, moralization, with lagers and etc. etc. What are your strategies of always keeping going on?
What keeps us going on actually is when, like Damarice, we went through this, and when we see other people going through the same thing, we ask ourselves why. I mean, why can't things change? And we try now with our empowerment workshops, to ask the other women how we can, to show them that, okay, there are personal problems, everybody has personal problems, you have them, but these are also problems which are part of the laws. And laws are made by men, and laws can be changed. They are changed all the time. So unless we fight for ourselves and from our own perspective, and then join with the society, the people who are in solidarity, then it means even after 20 years, things are almost the same. But I would say they are still the same because, okay, the problem here is they give something and take a lot. For example, the residence preached is now like, okay, people can move. But they are still a group which is not supposed to move. And they have really restricted this group because they want to deport them. And then we come to things like you are still, even if you are free to move, you still have to stay in your radicals. Otherwise, you cannot get if you are not sustaining yourself, then you cannot get the social welfare. So those are still restrictions. So they will say, we abolished the residence preached, but but still there are these, there are still restrictions inside. In Brandenburg, they are thinking of giving now like medical, the country,
Medical insurance?
The card, electronic for they want to give the refugees that so that they can, just go like to other people, but still there are people who need translators. They don't even know how they are going to work with Berlin because these are only from Brandenburg. And that means if you are sick in Berlin, you still have to go through this bureaucracy of getting permission and all that. So they are giving a little and then taking a lot. And we want to synthesize the refugees to fight together fight with the groups who are in solidarity with the refugee issues, so that these laws can be completely abolished. Not just give something and then inside you put a lot of, that unless you have a lawyer, every refugee has a lawyer. They don't even have the money to pay them, but you have to have one because you cannot understand all this bureaucracy inside.
And even with that, I think that the card for going to the doctors, that is also something that is coming after a struggle. It's not just coming on a platter of gold. Because they try to see what we are fighting for, they give us something small and then they create a big obstacle ahead. But still, we don't stop because we are here and no turning back. So we just have to keep on. Sometimes people get weak, some people really, it's like they cannot take it, but we still have to continue because there is no shortcut. We are there and we have to really push ahead. Turning back is like you're giving up on life and that's not where we are right now. So that's why life has to continue and we have to struggle to survive, whatever the circumstances. Yeah.
Do you know if these insurance cards are going to be equal to all other insurance cards, or will there be certain restrictions placed on the refugee insurance card?
There will be restrictions, as she said, like it's mostly within like Brandenburg, so maybe you are not even supposed to go to the doctor out of Brandenburg.
But in terms of the health care that they would receive?
I should think so. If you need specialized medical care, then you still have to go to social arm and start to ask them, and they are the ones to decide if
yes
you
or
need it
no.
or not.
And are there medical professionals at the social welfare that are making this decision, or is it just someone that decided?
Yes, somebody who says yeah or no, depending on how they walk up on that day. And remember, you're not understanding each other in the first place, so it goes with luck and how that person woke up with the mood they have that day. And people are losing lives in that luck.
Yes, also that you get sometimes recommendation from a doctor, your house doctor, that you need this special treatment, but still the social arm says no, and then you have to keep on either maybe use your lawyer or some other advisors to get them okay. It's quite, you have to keep on writing and showing that you really need it. Yeah. It's not like you just go and say, okay, your doctor refers you to another doctor. Yeah, and I don't see it happening because of these medical cards. I don't think it's going to change. Yeah.
I think on that ground I also got recommendation from my doctor in Cottbus that I needed some medication. It was a bit expensive. And so Social said no. And 2 years down the lane after I got my status, Now with my cranking cancer, the problem was too late. I had to undergo this operation, which something could have been taken care of if I got the medication. So, and still people lose their lives in the wait, because sometimes you can be told to wait for 6 months and you are in pain. Yeah.
Are there any questions? Okay, let's say the last question.
Yeah, well, I want to say thanks for being here and like sharing about your work and experiences, and I really like to get involved. And then I wanted to ask if is it the best way that I like write this email address here?
And tell us what you want to do. You know, we are having like kind visits, like we say. We need also support in the office. We need support with translations. We need a lot of things.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We also have some information, some material live
Yeah.
newsletter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, from me as well, from all of us. Thank you very much for being here. I think for an opening workshop or event, we got a good overview. For one, of the situation and the problems you work in front of it, but also on the strategies and methods of how it can go against it and go on going. And yeah.
Maybe something I would say, our group is not like a closed group where anybody is welcome to work with us. It's just to contact us and then see how we can work. Because we need a lot of support. In as much as I have gone to school, I could not translate well like somebody who speaks German as a first language. So, yeah. Thank you.
And also, if you manage or you have capacities, you're more than welcome to come to the next talks. So, promote more exchange. There are drinks. I don't know if Thais wants to say
No,
something.
thank you for coming, and we have the next evening workshop the next week in the Berlin and Brandenburg 10. And you're also welcome. Yeah.
With the international women.
Yeah.
What day is that?
Friday, 27.
27.